Hello, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories with Vice Vice Baby, where we will continue War number 6, Chapter 13. A week later, it was suggested to Andrei Efimych that he should have a rest, that is, send in his resignation. A suggestion he received with indifference, and a week later still, Mihail and he were sitting in a posting carriage driving to the nearest railway station. The days were cool and bright, with the blue sky and the transparent distance. They were 2 days driving the 150 miles to the railway station, and stayed 2 nights on the way. When at the posting station, the glasses given them for their tea had not been properly washed, or the drivers were slow in harnessing the horses, Mihail would turn crimson, and quivering all over would shout, "Hold your tongue! Don't argue!" And in the carriage he talked about ceasing for a moment, describing his campaigns in the Caucasus and in Poland. What adventure he had had! What meetings! He talked loudly and opened his eyes so wide with wonder that he might well be thought to be lying. Moreover, as he talked, he breathed in Andrei Efimich's face and laughed into his ear. This bothered the doctor and prevented him from thinking or concentrating his mind. In the train they traveled, from motives of economy, third class in a non-smoking compartment. Half the passengers were decent people. Mihail soon made friends with everyone, and moving from one seat to another, kept saying loudly that they ought not to travel by these appalling lines. It was a regular swindle. A very different thing riding on a good horse. One could do over 70 miles a day and feel fresh and well after it. And our bad harvests were due to the draining of the Pinsk marshes. Altogether, the way things were done was dreadful. He got excited, talking loudly, and would not let others speak. This endless chatter to the accompaniment of loud laughter and expressive gestures wearied Andrei Efimych. Which of us is the madman? He thought with vexation. I, who try not to disturb my fellow passengers in any way, or this egoist who thinks that he's the clever and more interesting than anyone here, and so will leave no one in peace. In Moscow, Mihail put on a military coat without epaulets and trousers with red braids on them. He wore a military cap and overcoat in the street, and soldiers saluted him. It seems to Andrei Efimych now that his companion was a man who had flung away all that was good and kept only what was bad of all the characteristics of a country gentleman that he had once possessed. He liked to be waited on even when it was quite unnecessary. Matches would be lying before him on the table, and he would see them and shout to the waiter to give him the matches. He did not hesitate to appear before a maidservant in nothing but his underclothes. He used a familiar mode of address to all footmen indiscriminately, even old men, and when he was angry, called them fools and blockheads. This, Andrei Efimych thought, was like a gentleman, but disgusting. First of all, Mihail led his friend to the Iversky Madonna. He prayed fervently, shedding tears and bowing down to the earth, and when he had finished, he heaved a deep sigh and said, "Even though one does not believe it, makes one somehow easier when one prays a little. Kiss the icon, my dear fellow." Andrei Efimych was embarrassed, and he kissed the image, while Mihail pursed up his lips and prayed in a whisper, and again tears came into his eyes. Then they went to the Kremlin and looked there at the Tsar cannon and the Tsar bell, and even touched them with their fingers, admired the view over the river, visited Saint Souvenirs and the Rumyantsev Museum. They dined at Tyastov's. Mihail looked at a long time at the menu, stroking his whiskers. and said in the tone of a gourmand accustomed to dine in restaurants, "We shall see what you give us to eat today, Angel." Thank you for tuning into this episode of Bedtime Stories with Vice Baby. I hope you all have a good night and sweet dreams.